15 years ago, I met a woman who had lost her daughter, this woman. She was from Nepal. When her daughter was just 13 years old, she and a friend were lured from their village by a smooth-talking trafficker who promised them all sorts of fun and adventures, schooling, money, in short, a better life. This is the common theme that entraps and enslaves millions of people around the world. And it applies whether it's in Nepal or in India or Brazil or the United States or the Balkans. It's what makes human trafficking so pernicious and so difficult to combat, so difficult to prevent. I'm still haunted by the faces and the situations I encountered back then. I was completely gripped by the subject, but the more I learned, the more uncomfortable I felt shooting in this documentary photojournalistic style. I had no way of knowing if these girls had been trafficked and what brought them to this place. At this Saturday market in Turin, Italy, I had no way of knowing if this was a brothel madam out shopping with her 3 girls, or a mother out shopping with her 3 daughters. For me, the questions were both aesthetic and moral. How do you make visually compelling images of something you can't see? How do you make visually compelling images that don't feed into society's voyeurism and judgment? How to make them tell authentic, not sensationalized stories, and to do that without re-exploiting and stigmatizing the very people I want to help. To have access, I started working with NGOs that provide services and a safe environment to trafficking survivors. Basically, I got buy-in from the survivors themselves, and that was key. I actively listened to their stories, and from their words, I constructed these fairly abstract, non-representational images. They're constructed photographs that are more about universal themes like deception, powerlessness, fear, betrayal, escape, but also resilience and courage. My idea was to get at the subject from inside, and while we can't really know what it's like to be trafficked, we can relate to having been betrayed or deceived or feeling powerless, even desperate. This body of work, Bought and Sold: Voices of Human Trafficking, was exhibited throughout the Netherlands in partnership with a Dutch NGO in 2009 and 2010. I saw how powerful the response was, and I thought, why not invite other artists working in other disciplines to address the issue of human trafficking? That was the genesis of Artworks for Freedom. We are a unique nonprofit, and we use all forms of artistic expression to raise awareness and engage people in the fight to end trafficking. We believe that awareness is the critical first step in preventing this largely invisible crime. Our multifaceted arts campaigns and exhibits are carried out in partnership with local artists, civic and business associations, NGOs, educational institutions, and grassroots communities, grassroots community groups throughout the US and overseas. We've built a coalition of artist activists whose amazing work provides different entry points into what is admittedly a dark subject that most people don't want to know about. But we believe art can crack open people's hearts, a catalyst for change. It creates empathy and helps us see our shared humanity. By authentic retelling of survivors' stories, we are also able to amplify their voices and make their experiences to a large audience. Because we want people to know that trafficking is happening all around us, we make the work accessible to everyone with large outdoor installations. We want to capture everybody, we want to capture everyday people just going about their business and not just appeal to a gallery-going arts crowd or to anti-trafficking people who already know what a terrible thing human trafficking is. The idea is really to broaden the audience, to seed the ground. Believe it or not, this fabulous mural series was created by 17 and 18-year-old artist apprentices in an after-school program in Brooklyn, New York. They started out with all the usual cliches, but they did a tremendous amount of research about trafficking in New York and in the US. And they came to see human trafficking quite differently and produced these original and stunning images. We also offer very powerful work by survivors themselves, including this series of drawings by a Cambodian farmer trafficked onto a Thai fishing vessel and held at sea for 3 years before he managed to escape, only to be resold to a palm oil plantation and held for another year. Our most ambitious offerings are perhaps in the visual arts, including a dance suite that we commissioned called Strong in the Broken Places. It uses the ancient Japanese art form of repairing broken ceramic as a metaphor for what trafficking victims and survivors go through and how they come out stronger and more beautiful than the original. Molly Gotchman's Red Sand Project is a great example of a participatory arts event. It asks people to pour red sand into sidewalk cracks, making their own art while making visible all the invisible, marginalized, and exploited people at risk of being trafficked. Another popular initiative is our Golden Doors to Freedom project. There's something magical about handling 23-karat gold leaf, gilding an abandoned old door, basically a piece of junk, and then transforming it into a work of art with messages, poems, and embellishments expressing support for victims and survivors of trafficking. People really get into it, as you can see here. And so we now have 14 doors that we hope to eventually auction off to benefit participating survivor groups. In closing, I want to leave you with 2 quotes, which I think beautifully bookend what Artworks for Freedom is all about. The first is by Edgar Degas, who said, "Art is not what you see, but what you make others see." And the second is this from Toni Morrison, who so eloquently wrote, "The function of freedom is to free someone else." That's what we're trying to do, and we need your help. Thank you so much.